10 photos with a moving story. Omaira Sanchez. On November 12, 1985, the Colombian volcano Nevado del Ruiz erupted after 140 years of dormancy. In the nearby town of Armero, 22,000 people died, caught in their sleep. 13-year-old Omaira Sanchez waited 3 days in the mud and water, her legs trapped under the rubble of her own house, until rescue workers managed to free her. A television camera films her ordeal and broadcasts her terrible agony around the world. For 3 days, on every channel, on every newscast, there are live images of the poor little girl dying. On November 16 at 9:16 a.m., the brave Omaira finally died. This photo, published a few months after her death, helped to question the role of the media and the boundary between news and voyeurism. Christopher McCandless. Christopher McCandless, the prodigal son of a well-to-do American family with a promising future, suddenly dropped everything after graduating from university in 1990 to set off alone into the unknown. Thus began a journey of over 2 years that took him to the storm trail in the Alaskan wilderness. Once there, Chris found refuge in a wrecked bus and spent almost 4 months there, the last few months of his life feeding mainly on small animals and potato roots. One day in September 1992, hunters stumbled upon Christopher's badly decomposed body, weighing barely 30 kilos. He had died of malnutrition and hardship. This photo, found not far from his body, is the last known of Christopher McCandless. He is holding a sheet of paper in his hand, on which he writes, "I've had a happy life, thanks be to God, may He bless you." John Lennon. John Lennon was one of the most influential members of the Beatles, and as such a star who was recognized everywhere he went. In fact, here's a photo taken on December 8, 1980, showing him kindly signing the album of one of his many admirers. But what Lennon didn't know was that the person he was signing an autograph for would shoot him dead just a few hours after this photo was taken. That very evening, Mark David Chapman, as he was known, murdered John Lennon outside his New York apartment, shooting him 4 times in the back and immediately entering the club of the world's most hated men. Tyler Aday. This photograph was taken by Tyler Aday, a 17-year-old American boy who was having a party at his house in Florida. Yes, I know, there are hundreds of parties thrown by teenagers every day, so why talk about this one in particular? Simply because young Tyler is partying and taking pictures of himself after having just murdered both his parents. What's worse, while the mood is peaking, the bodies of the 2 victims are still in the bedroom, just a few yards from where his 60 guests are gathered. Fortunately, the abominable Tyler Aday has since been arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment. Blanche Monnier. Blanche Monnier was a typical French socialite until her mother locked her in her own room and forced her to live in her garbage for 25 years. He's right, Blanche Monnier had fallen in love with an elderly, broke lawyer whom her mother hated and whom she intended to marry. This photo of Blanche was taken when she was rescued in 1901 by the Poitiers police. At the time, she weighed just 25 kilos and her hair reached her thighs. When Blanche Monnier was discovered, she hadn't seen the sunlight for a quarter of a century. She was naked, skeletal, covered in cockroaches and glass and driven mad by her imprisonment. Pogo the Clown. You may never have heard of Pogo the Clown pictured here, and that's perfectly normal. Pogo the Clown was the nickname chosen by John Wayne Gacy, a notorious serial rapist and killer of the 70s. When he wasn't dressing up as a clown to cheer up hospitalized children, Gacy was busy raping and murdering young boys. There were over 30 of them in all, often naive and feeble-minded, whose bodies he buried beneath his Chicago home. Arrested in 1978 and executed in 1994, Gacy was convicted of 33 murders and sentenced to death for 12 of them. Portrait of the children of a 19th century family. Don't they all look so cute, these children from the same family, arranged so nicely from tallest to shortest? But wait a minute, why is the image of the little girl in white so sharp, when all her older brothers and sisters seem to be surrounded by a halo of light? The reason is quite simple. The little girl is dead, and unlike the others, she no longer causes any motion blur. If you're shocked, you should know that this practice, called postmortem photography, was very popular in the USA, Europe, and during the British Victorian era. It enabled families to keep a photograph of the deceased. It was often the only visual reminder of the deceased possessed by the grieving family. Reynaldo Daxa. This is a family photo taken for New Year's Eve 2011 by Reynaldo Daxa, a Filipino city councilor. It may take you a few seconds to realize what's wrong with this picture. In the background, on the left, behind the members of Daxa's family, is a man dressed in black, pointing a gun at Reynaldo Daxa. Moments later, this man pulls the trigger on his pistol, fatally shooting the unfortunate councilman. Daxa's confessor, looking at the final shot, realizes that there are two men in the photo who have absolutely nothing to do with it. On the left, the murderer, pointing his gun at the camera, and on the right, an accomplice. Unknowingly, Reynaldo Daxa solved his murder before it was even committed, enabling the police to quickly detain those who had taken his life. Regina K. Walters. This girl doesn't look at all happy to be photographed, and no, it's not because she doesn't think she's photogenic. Unfortunately, this is the latest photo of Regina K. Walters. Kidnapped at the age of 14 by notorious serial killer Robert Ben Rhodes, this monster forced her to wear this black dress and her high heels to take a photo of her just minutes before cutting off her head. The remains of her body were found in an abandoned barn in Illinois, USA. When Rhodes was arrested for kidnapping another woman, police searched his house and found this photo taken just moments before the murder. Tara Calico. On September 20th, 1988, a 19-year-old girl named Tara Calico left her home in Belen, New Mexico, to go biking. Neither Tara nor her bike have been seen since. On June 15, 1989, a Polaroid photograph of a young girl and boy, both bound and gagged, was found in the parking lot of a grocery store in Port St. John, Florida. Although the FBI has never officially acknowledged it, it is generally accepted that the girl in the photo is certainly Tara Calico, accompanied by a young boy who has never been formally identified. The person who found this photo stated that a van driven by a mustachioed man had been staying for a long time in the very spot where the photo was found. The police have never been able to find this man, and since 1989, the terrible disappearance of Tara Calico has never been solved. But that's not all. Here's a second photo, and for this one, only you can judge whether it's Tara Calico or not. This photo was posted in 2015, yes, just a few months ago, by a 4chan forum user who mockingly titled it "Helpless Rabbit." This user then disappeared completely without ever answering any of the questions his photo raised. Was it the killer? A friend of the killer? Someone who simply found the photo? Was it just a joke, or was it an as yet unknown young woman who isn't Calico? We have no idea. In any case, if you have any theories or hypotheses that might help solve this case, please feel free to post them in the comments. So, folks, which of these stories surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if not, as usual, let's give it a blue thumbs up and share as much as we can on Facebook and Twitter. In fact, I invite you to click on the video description and find us on Facebook. It's so important to stay in touch, and it's not uncommon for the Afishy Soul to make important announcements there. And don't forget to subscribe too. See you next week, folks.